My name is Rachel Monroe. I'm 34 years old. The first thing I saw when I walked into the DMV on Sycamore Avenue was my father standing at counter 4 with my car title in his hand, smiling like the matter had already been settled. It was 11:20 in the morning on a Thursday, and I still had the hospital bracelet in my purse because I had not been home long enough to throw it away. My incision pulled every time I breathed too deeply. My hair was in the same loose braid my friend Michelle had made for me before she drove me there, because I could not lift my arms without feeling like someone had hooked a wire behind my ribs. My mother stood beside my father in her beige church cardigan, holding her purse with both hands. My younger brother Kyle leaned against the wall near the vision test machine, scrolling through his phone. He was 31 years old, wearing a new leather jacket I had never seen before, and he had the blank, bored expression of a man who had learned that other people's emergencies usually became his convenience. The buyer was there too. His name was Dennis Ward. He owned a small used appliance shop off County Line Road. I recognized him because he had come to my parents' house twice, when I was still recovering in the hospital, though no one had told me why. He kept glancing at me, and then at the title, like he was already regretting getting involved. My father turned when he heard my shoes on the tile. For 1 second, his face changed. Not guilt, not fear. I think it was irritation. "Rachel," he said, lowering his voice like I was the one making a scene. "You should be resting." My mother looked at the cane in my left hand and sighed. "You didn't have to come all the way down here," she said. "We had it handled." The DMV clerk behind the counter was a woman in her late 50s with silver glasses on a chain and a nameplate that said Marlene. She had one hand resting on my car title and one hand hovering over a stack of forms. She looked at me, then at the title, then back at me. "Are you Rachel Monroe?" she asked. I nodded. "Yes, ma'am." My father gave a little laugh. "That's my daughter," he said. "She's been very sick. We're just trying to help her get things in order." My mother touched his arm like they were a loving couple in a commercial for life insurance. Kyle did not look up from his phone. The clerk did not laugh. She pointed at the blue title form with one short, clean fingernail. "This vehicle is titled solely in Rachel Monroe's name," she said. "The transfer cannot be completed without her notarized signature or her appearing in person." My father's smile tightened. We explained that she authorized us. Marlene looked at the title again. "She did not sign this." My mother's mouth opened slightly. I stood there with my cane pressed against the tile, feeling the incision under my sweater throb with each heartbeat. The car they were trying to sell was a silver 2017 Toyota Corolla, with a dent on the rear passenger door and a coffee stain shaped like a crescent moon under the driver's seat. It had 212,000 miles on it. It was not fancy, it was not new. But it was mine, it was how I got to my job, it was how I got to physical therapy. It was how I paid my rent, bought my groceries, picked up extra bookkeeping clients, and drove myself to the hospital the night my appendix ruptured because my mother said she and Dad were already in pajamas. My father set the title down on the counter and turned toward me. "Don't make this difficult," he said quietly. The room smelled like printer toner, wet coats, and old coffee. Somewhere behind us, a toddler was crying because his mother would not let him press the ticket machine again. The digital number board clicked from B17 to B18. I remember the sound because the whole room went quiet around it. My father leaned closer. "Your brother needed help more than you did," he said. "You were in the hospital. You couldn't drive anyway." My mother added, and Kyle had already arranged the buyer. Like that was the part. One had been too unreasonable to appreciate. I looked at my brother then. Kyle finally glanced up. "What?" he said. "It's just a car." I did not answer right away. I watched his thumb move across his phone screen. I watched my mother adjust the strap of her purse. I watched my father's hand cover the corner of the title, as if paper could become his just because he touched it. What they did not know was that at 7:45 that morning, before Michelle drove me to the DMV, I had already spoken to the finance company, the hospital patient advocate, a police officer, my insurance agent, and a woman at the county clerk's office who remembered my father trying to file a document he had no right to file. What they did not know was that the clerk at counter 4 had already been warned. And what they really did not know was that the title in my father's hand was not the only document in that building with my name on it. I did not cry. I did not raise my voice. I did not tell him he was cruel or selfish or wrong. I just looked at Marlene and said, "I'm here now. Please do not process that transfer." Marlene nodded once. My father's face changed again. This time, it was fear. But before I tell you what happened at that counter, I need to take you back to the beginning. And while I do, tell me where you are watching from, and what time it is there. If you have ever had someone treat your property, your labor, or your life like a family resource they could spend without asking, leave a comment. And if stories about women who were betrayed, underestimated, and quietly took their power back mean something to you, subscribe to Ultimate Revenge. This is that story. I grew up in Brookhaven, Ohio, in a white split-level house on Maple Ridge Drive, the kind of house with plastic shutters and a yard my father treated like a public statement. Every Saturday morning from April through October, he mowed the lawn in diagonal lines, then stood at the edge of the driveway with one hand on his hip, looking at the grass like he had personally civilized the neighborhood. My father, Robert Monroe, was a retired insurance adjuster. He was 64 when this happened, still broad-shouldered, still careful with his hair, still capable of making people feel like he knew more than they did. He had a way of speaking that sounded reasonable until you noticed everyone around him had gone quiet. My mother, Elaine, was 62 and worked part-time at the front desk of a dental office. She wore soft sweaters, volunteered for church bake sales, remembered everyone's birthday, and could make cruelty sound like housekeeping. "Rachel is sensitive," she would say, if I objected to something, or "Rachel has always needed things explained gently," or "Rachel remembers it differently." Those phrases followed me through my childhood like perfume in a room after someone had left. Then there was Kyle. Kyle was 3 years younger than me, and in our house, his needs were weather. They arrived, they shifted the room, and everyone adjusted. If Kyle failed a class, the teacher had not understood his learning style. If Kyle crashed my mother's van into a mailbox at 17, the road was too narrow. If Kyle quit a job after 2 weeks, the manager had been threatened by his independent streak. If Kyle borrowed money and did not pay it back, he was under pressure. I was not under pressure. I was responsible. That was the word my parents used for me so often it became less like praise and more like a sentence. Rachel is responsible. Rachel can handle it. Rachel does not need much. Rachel understands. I had a bedroom at the end of the hall with a window that faced the neighbor's maple tree. On windy nights, the branches scratched softly against the siding. I used to lie awake and listen to my parents talking downstairs. If Kyle had caused a problem, their voices were low and urgent. If I needed something, their voices were practical. When I was 12, I saved babysitting money for a used flute because I wanted to join band. Kyle wanted a dirt bike helmet the same month. My father said, "The flute can wait. Kyle already has the bike." So the helmet came home in a glossy black box, and I kept my babysitting money in an envelope behind my dresser until the next school year. When I was 15, my grandmother June gave me a small leather keychain shaped like a book. It had a tiny brass snap and a little loop for keys. She said, "For the places you will go." Grandma June was my mother's mother, and she was the only person in our family who said things to me without turning them into a lesson. She lived 20 minutes away in a brick ranch house with yellow curtains and a kitchen that always smelled faintly of cinnamon. She had worked as a school secretary for 30 years, and she kept every important paper in labeled folders. "Paper remembers," she used to say, tapping her filing cabinet. "People get convenient amnesia, paper does not." I loved that keychain. I put it on my first house key, then my first apartment key, then eventually on the key to the Corolla. The leather darkened over the years where my thumb rubbed it. The brass snap became loose. I never replaced it. That little book keychain became the one thing I carried through every version of myself. My parents liked my grandmother, but they did not always enjoy her. She had a quiet way of noticing things that made dishonest people uncomfortable. Once, during Thanksgiving when I was 19, Kyle joked that I only got good grades because I had no social life. My father laughed. My mother said, "Kyle, be nice." Grandma June looked at him over her glasses and said, "Rachel works. You avoid work loudly." The table went still. Kyle rolled his eyes, but he did not make another joke that day. I think that was the first time I understood there was a difference between someone defending you and someone simply wishing everyone would get along. My parents were good at wishing everyone would get along, as long as I was the one doing the getting along. From the outside, we looked ordinary, respectable. My father kept the lawn neat. My mother sent Christmas cards with a family photo every year. Kyle smiled in pictures with his arm around my shoulder, and I let him because I wanted to be the kind of sister who did not keep score. Inside, everything had a current. Money flowed toward Kyle, and explanations flowed toward me. When I was 22, I graduated from community college with an associate degree in accounting. I had worked evenings at a grocery store to pay tuition. My parents came to the ceremony late because Kyle had overslept and they waited for him. I remember sitting in my black gown, watching families take photos near the fountain. My mother hurried toward me afterward with a bouquet from the grocery store still wrapped in plastic. "Sorry, honey," she said. "Your brother had a rough morning." Kyle gave me a side hug and said, "Look at you, Miss Spreadsheet." I smiled because that was what I knew how to do. When Kyle turned 22, my parents threw him a backyard party because he had completed a 3-month HVAC certification course. My father bought steaks. My mother made 2 cakes because Kyle could not decide between chocolate and lemon. My father stood by the grill and told the neighbors, "The boy has finally found his path." Kyle quit the HVAC job before Halloween. No one mentioned the path again. I built my life carefully because I had learned early that no safety net was coming. I rented a 1-bedroom apartment above a hair salon on Mill Street. The walls were thin, and every Thursday evening I could hear the owner downstairs dragging chairs across the floor after closing. My kitchen window faced the alley. The radiator clanked in winter. I loved that apartment because everything in it was mine. I worked as a payroll coordinator for a home healthcare company called Brighter Days Senior Care. It was not glamorous work, but I was good at it. I knew which nurses picked up weekend shifts, which caregivers forgot to update their direct deposit forms, which clients needed invoices mailed instead of emailed because their adult children handled the accounts. I kept numbers straight. I remembered names. I fixed problems before they became emergencies. The Corolla came into my life when I was 29. It had belonged to a retired teacher named Mrs. Bellamy, who kept it clean and drove it mostly to church and the library. I found it through a coworker's aunt. I paid $8,600 for it with money I had saved slowly, and when the title came in the mail, I sat at my kitchen table for 10 full minutes, just looking at my name printed in black letters. Rachel Ann Monroe. Owner. I put the title in a blue folder with my insurance policy, registration, maintenance receipts, and the loan payoff letter I hoped to get one day. Then I clipped the car key onto Grandma June's little book keychain. It felt silly, maybe, to be proud of a used Corolla, but that car changed my life. It meant I could take extra bookkeeping clients after work. It meant I could help elderly clients with payroll paperwork in person. It meant I could drive to Grandma June's house on Sunday afternoons without asking anyone. It meant I could leave when I wanted to leave. My father called it practical. My mother called it cute. Kyle asked if he could borrow it 2 weeks after I bought it. "No," I said. He blinked like the word had come from a stranger. "I just need it for one afternoon." "No." My mother called later. "Honey, Kyle said you were a little sharp with him. He wanted my car. He needed to pick up some tools. He has his truck. His truck is making a noise. Then he needs a mechanic." There was a pause. I could hear my mother breathing through her nose. "You know," she said, "family helps family." I looked at the blue folder on my kitchen table. "I agree," I said. And sometimes family helps by respecting the word no. That was one of the first times I said no and did not soften it afterward. I wish I could tell you it changed everything. It did not. It simply taught them to ask in different ways. Over the next few years, my parents' requests became less direct. Could I pay the electric bill just this once because Kyle was between checks? Could I co-sign a small loan because Kyle had turned a corner? Could I give up Thanksgiving weekend because Kyle had invited friends and they needed more room at the house? Could I understand why my birthday dinner was moved because Kyle had a work thing that he later did not attend? Each time, my parents made the request sound temporary. Each time, the temporary thing became part of the family structure. I became the quiet provider. Not because I had more, but because I complained less. When Grandma June died, I was 32. She passed on a rainy Tuesday in February, sitting in her recliner with a crossword puzzle on her lap and a cup of tea cooling beside her. The funeral was small. My mother cried into a lace handkerchief. My father shook hands with everyone. Kyle arrived late, smelling faintly of cologne and cigarette smoke, and asked me if there was food afterward. At the house, after the service, my mother handed me Grandma's old tin recipe box. "She wanted you to have this," she said. It was cream-colored, with red cherries painted on the lid. Inside were index cards written in Grandma's neat cursive, recipes for pot roast, lemon bars, cinnamon rolls, chicken soup, and one card that just said, "Call Rachel when you miss the truth." I stood in Grandma's kitchen with that card in my hand and felt something open and close inside me. My father came in behind me and said, "Your grandmother always was sentimental." I put the card back in the box. "She was accurate," I said. He did not answer. After Grandma died, my parents became more careful with me for a while. Not kinder, exactly. Careful. I think they knew she had been the one person who would have looked them in the eye and said my name when they tried to erase me. Then Kyle lost another job. Then he moved back into my parents' basement. Then his truck was repossessed. And the old pattern returned. By the winter I was 34. Kyle had no car, no steady job, and a girlfriend named Amber who had 2 children, and no patience for his excuses. He had started doing delivery work using my mother's sedan, which meant my mother complained constantly about not being able to get to work, which meant my father complained about my mother complaining, which meant everyone looked in my direction. My Corolla became a topic before anyone actually asked for it. My father would say, "That Toyota is still running well." My mother would say, "You're lucky you work regular hours." Kyle would say, "Some of us don't have a company payroll cushion." I would say nothing and sip my coffee. The last Sunday before everything happened, I went to my parents' house for dinner because my mother had said she was making roast chicken and wanted one normal family meal. That phrase always meant someone planned to ask me for something. The dining room had not changed in 20 years. Same oak table, same china cabinet, same framed print of a covered bridge on the wall. My mother had set out the good napkins, which meant she wanted the conversation to appear gentler than it was. Kyle arrived halfway through dinner, dropped into his chair, and reached for the potatoes before washing his hands. My father cleared his throat. "Rachel," he said, "we need to discuss transportation." I kept my fork in my hand. "Transportation?" "Kyle is in a tight spot." Kyle snorted. "I'm right here." My father ignored him. "He needs reliable transportation to get back on his feet." I looked at Kyle's new sneakers. "White, clean, expensive." "I'm sorry to hear that." My mother smiled too quickly. "Your car is paid off soon, isn't it?" I set my fork down. "In 8 months." "But you work from home 2 days a week now," she said. "I still drive 3 days a week, and to clients, and to appointments." Kyle leaned back. "You act like it's a Lexus." "It's my car." He laughed under his breath. My father's voice became patient, which was always the most dangerous version of him. "No one is saying it is not your car. We are saying the family may need to make a practical adjustment." A practical adjustment would be Kyle getting a job near a bus line. My mother said, "Rachel." Just my name, soft warning. The way she used to say it in grocery stores if I reached for cereal that was not on sale. Kyle pointed his fork at me. "You know, you always do this. You make everything about ownership. My car, my apartment, my money. It's selfish." I looked at him. "No, it's accurate." The room went still. My father placed his knife beside his plate with careful precision. "Your brother has struggled," he said. "So have I." My mother looked down at her plate. Kyle laughed again. "With what? Sitting at a desk counting other people's money?" I did not answer. I watched my mother cut her chicken into pieces so small they barely looked like food. I watched my father's hand rest near his water glass. I watched Kyle chew with his mouth slightly open. That was the night I should have understood they were not asking. They were measuring how hard it would be to take. 3 days later, my appendix ruptured. It started as a pain low in my right side while I was reviewing payroll corrections at my kitchen table. At first, I thought it was something I ate. I made tea. I lay down. By 8:15 that evening, I was sweating through my shirt and gripping the edge of the bathtub, because standing upright made the room tilt. I called my mother. She answered on the fourth ring. "Hi, honey." "Mom, I think something is wrong. I need to go to the hospital." There was a pause. In the background, I heard a television laugh track. "What kind of wrong?" "Pain. Bad pain. Right side. I can barely stand." "Oh, Rachel." She sounded tired. "Your father already took his sleep medicine." "Can you drive me?" "It's late." "It's 8:20. Kyle has the sedan." I closed my eyes and pressed my forehead against the bathroom wall. "I can call an ambulance." "Well, that would be expensive." I remember that sentence exactly, not because she was wrong, ambulances are expensive, but because of the order in which her worries arrived. I said, "I'll drive myself." "Are you sure that's safe?" "No." I hung up. The drive to Brookhaven Memorial took 12 minutes. I remember every red light. I remember gripping the steering wheel with both hands. I remember Grandma June's little book keychain tapping against the steering column with each bump in the road. At the emergency entrance, a security guard helped me out of the car. I gave him my keys because I could not figure out how to park. He said, "We'll take care of it, ma'am." The next morning, I woke up after emergency surgery with a dry mouth, an IV in my hand, and Michelle sitting in the chair beside my bed reading a paperback mystery. Michelle and I had worked together at Brighter Days for 6 years. She was 41, divorced, funny in a dry way, and loyal without making speeches about it. She looked up when I moved. "Well," she said, closing the book, "you picked a dramatic way to avoid the staff meeting." I tried to laugh. It hurt. My parents came that afternoon. My mother brought a tote bag with socks, a hairbrush, and a bottle of lotion I did not use. My father stood near the foot of the bed and asked the surgeon questions in the voice he used for contractors. Kyle did not come. "He wanted to," my mother said. "But he had something with Amber's kids." I said, "Of course." My mother pretended not to hear the shape of that. For the first 2 days, I was too sick to think about anything except pain medication, ice chips, and the slow humiliation of needing help to sit up. The nurses were kind. Michelle came every evening after work. My mother visited for exactly 40 minutes each afternoon. My father drove her. Kyle texted once, "You alive?" I stared at the message for a while before typing back. Yes. He sent a thumbs up emoji. On the third day, I asked my mother if she could bring my apartment mail when she came. There were bills I needed to check, and my work laptop charger was still on my desk. She looked at my father. "We stopped by your place," she said. "But you should not worry about paperwork right now." "I need my charger." "Michelle can get it. I gave you the spare key." My father said, "Rachel, you just had surgery." That was when I noticed my mother's purse, sitting on the visitor chair. My little book keychain was hanging from the outer pocket. Not her keychain. Mine. For a moment, I thought the pain medication had confused me. "Why do you have my car keys?" I asked. My mother followed my eyes to the purse. "Oh. Your father picked up the car from the hospital lot. We didn't want it sitting there." "That was thoughtful," I said. "Can I have the keys?" My father folded his arms. "We'll keep them for now. You can't drive." "I know I can't drive today, but I want my keys." My mother touched the keychain lightly. "Honey, don't fixate." There it was. A small sentence, soft as a napkin laid over a stain. Don't fixate. I looked at the leather book. The brass snap had turned toward me. "Mom," I said, "put my keys on the tray." She gave my father that look married people give each other when they have already decided something and are waiting for the inconvenient person to catch up. My father said, "We'll discuss it when you're stronger." "No, we will discuss it now." His jaw tightened. "Rachel, this is not the time." I felt something in me settle. The pain was still there. The IV machine still clicked. The hallway still smelled like antiseptic and reheated soup from the nurse's station. But a clear space opened in my mind. I said, "Leave my keys on the tray." My mother's face became wounded. "After everything we're doing for you?" Michelle walked in before I could answer. She was carrying a paper cup of coffee and a folded sweatshirt. She looked from my mother to my father to me. Bad time? My father smiled. No, not at all. Rachel is just anxious. Michelle looked at the keychain on my mother's purse. Then at me. Then she said, Rachel, do you want me to stay? I nodded once. My mother took the keys off her purse slowly and placed them on the rolling tray beside my water cup. The leather book landed with a soft slap. My father said nothing. They left 5 minutes later. Michelle waited until the door closed. What was that? I picked up the keys and held them so tightly the metal bit into my palm. I don't know yet. But I did. Not fully, not with details. But I knew the shape of it. The next morning, a nurse named Lila came in to check my incision. She was maybe 50, with gray threaded through her dark hair and a calmness that made the room feel steadier. She asked if I had someone to help me at home. I have a friend, I said. Family? I looked toward the window. Snow was collecting along the sill in a thin white line. That depends on what you mean by help. She did not pry. She just nodded and said, make sure your discharge paperwork goes home with you. All of it. Paper remembers. Grandma June's voice came back so clearly that I almost turned my head. On the 4th day, I woke from a nap to my father standing near my bed with a folder under his arm. My mother was not with him. He seemed cheerful. How are we feeling? We? He smiled like I had made a joke. The doctor says maybe tomorrow. That's what they said. Good, good. He sat down in the visitor chair and placed the folder on his lap. It was not my blue folder. It was manila, with nothing written on the tab. I wanted to talk to you about the car. I looked at him. What about it? He exhaled through his nose, performing patience. Rachel, your recovery is going to take time. You won't be driving for weeks. Kyle needs transportation immediately. We found a buyer. I stared at him. You found a buyer for my car? He raised one hand. Listen before reacting. I am listening. Dennis Ward is willing to pay $4, $900 cash. Given the mileage, that's fair. We can use part of it to help Kyle get into something, and the rest can help with your hospital bills. My hospital bills are mine. My car is mine. He leaned forward. This is exactly the attitude that worries your mother and me. I almost laughed, but laughing hurt. My attitude? You are clinging to independence in a way that is not practical. I turned my head slightly on the pillow. The room tilted, then steadied. Dad, did you bring a title form here? He looked down at the folder. We need your signature. No. You haven't even looked at it. No. His face hardened. Kyle needs help more. There it was. The family creed. Spoken plainly in a hospital room while I had staples in my abdomen. I watched his hand on the folder. His wedding ring tapped once against the cardboard. I drove myself to the emergency room because no one could bring me, I said. He looked annoyed. Don't be dramatic. I am not being dramatic, I am being specific. He stood. You have always kept score. No, I said. I have always kept receipts. There is a difference. He did not like that. For a moment, the father I had spent my life trying not to disappoint looked at me like I was a stranger blocking a door. Then he picked up the folder. You'll feel differently when you are home. I won't. We'll see. He left with the manila folder under his arm. That was the moment I stopped hoping they would remember I was a person. Before they remembered I was useful. I did not call my mother. I did not text Kyle. I did not explain myself again. I pressed the call button. When Lila came in, I asked for the patient advocate. By the following morning, the hospital room had become my first office. The patient advocate was a woman named Denise Park. She wore navy slacks, carried a tablet, and listened without interrupting. I told her my father had brought title paperwork to my room while I was under medication and recovering from emergency surgery. I told her he wanted me to sign over my car. I told her I did not consent. Denise's expression changed only slightly, but I noticed it. Did you sign anything? She asked. No. Did he leave any papers? No. Do you want us to restrict visitors? I looked at the door. Yes. That single word felt heavier than it should have. Denise typed something into her tablet. We can note that no documents are to be witnessed by hospital staff without your explicit request. We can also put a privacy alert on your chart. I want that. Do you feel unsafe being discharged to your family? I am not going with them. She nodded. Who is picking you up? Michelle. Good. Then she said something I will always remember. People often take advantage of medical vulnerability because they believe the patient will be too tired to object. Being tired does not remove your rights. After she left, I cried for the first time. Quietly, not because of the car, not exactly. Because a stranger in navy slacks had said my rights as if they were real things in the room with us. I wiped my face before the nurse came back. That afternoon, my mother called. I heard you restricted visitors. I looked at the IV tape on my hand. Yes. There was silence. Rachel, that was unnecessary. Dad brought car title paperwork to my hospital bed. He was trying to help. No. He worries about you. No, Mom. He was trying to sell my car. She lowered her voice. You are making this ugly. It was already ugly, I just named it. She inhaled sharply. Your brother is desperate. I was desperate 3 nights ago when I drove myself to surgery. That is unfair. It is accurate. She began to cry then, softly at first, then in the practiced way that usually made me apologize. This time I looked at the window. Mom, crying will not transfer the title. She stopped. I think that sentence shocked both of us. Rachel, she said, in a voice I had known since childhood, you are going to regret speaking to me this way. No, I said. I regret letting you keep speaking to me that way. I ended the call. I was discharged on Friday afternoon with a paper bag of prescriptions, printed instructions, and a warning not to lift anything heavier than a gallon of milk. Michelle pulled up to the entrance in her blue Subaru, got out, and helped me into the passenger seat with the solemn focus of someone handling glass. She had already gone to my apartment, changed my sheets, put soup in the refrigerator, and moved the trash can beside my bed so I would not have to bend. On the drive home, she said, Do you want me to take you to your parents' house to get the car? I closed my eyes. Not yet. Okay. I need to do this properly. She glanced at me. That sounded like payroll, Rachel. Payroll Rachel has kept many people out of trouble. Payroll Rachel is terrifying. I smiled a little. It hurt, but less than before. The Corolla was in my parents' driveway when Michelle drove past Maple Ridge Drive at my request. It was parked behind Kyle's old truck, boxed in. Snow had melted unevenly on the windshield. The little dent on the passenger door caught the pale afternoon light. My mother's sedan was gone. Keep driving, I said. Michelle did. At home, I sat at my kitchen table with my discharge papers, my laptop, my blue car folder, and Grandma June's recipe box beside me. The apartment was quiet, except for the radiator clicking under the window. Someone downstairs turned on a hairdryer. The sound rose through the floor in a low hum. I opened the blue folder. Title copy. Registration. Insurance card. Loan payoff statement showing I still owed $1, $140. Maintenance receipt from Allen's Auto for new brakes. Oil change receipt. Tire receipt. A handwritten note from Mrs. Bellamy that said, She's been a good little car. Paper remembers. The first thing I did was call my auto lender. The woman who answered was named Priya. I explained that someone might attempt to sell or transfer my vehicle without permission. Priya asked security questions, then said, Ms. Monroe, because there is still a lien, the title transfer cannot be completed without lien holder release. We can place a note on the account. Please do. Do you know who has the physical title? I do. It's in my folder. I touched the copy, then stopped. Not the original. The original title was not in the blue folder. For a moment, I could hear nothing but the radiator. I checked again, slowly. Every sleeve, every pocket. Insurance, registration, receipts, loan papers. No original title. I had last seen the original 6 months earlier when I renewed my registration. I kept it in the locked metal box at the bottom of my bedroom closet with my birth certificate and Grandma June's death certificate copy. My parents had my spare apartment key while I was in the hospital. My incision seemed to tighten from the inside. Michelle, who had been washing a mug in the sink, turned around. "What?" "The title is gone." She dried her hands. "Are you sure?" "Yes." The word came out flat. She pulled out the chair across from me. "Then we document that." That was Michelle. She did not gasp. She did not tell me to calm down. She moved directly to the next useful thing. I took photos of the blue folder contents. I photographed the empty sleeve where the title copy had been clipped. I photographed the metal box in my closet, the papers inside it, the space where the title should have been. I wrote down the date and time. Friday, February 9th, 2024, 6:20 in the evening. Then I called the Brookhaven Police Department non-emergency line. The officer who came to my apartment was named Officer Ruiz. He was young, maybe late 20s, with careful eyes and a notebook he actually used. Michelle stayed in the kitchen while I explained. My parents had access to my apartment while I was hospitalized, I said. My original car title is missing. My father attempted to get me to sign transfer paperwork in the hospital. I believe they may try to sell the vehicle. Officer Ruiz asked, "Do you want to report the title stolen?" I paused. That word sat in the room like a heavy coat. Stolen. I had spent years making smaller words for what my family did. Borrowed. Needed. Misunderstood. Helped themselves. Crossed a line. But smaller words had not protected me. "Yes," I said. "I want to report it stolen." He wrote it down. "Do they currently have the vehicle?" "Yes, it is at their house." "Did you give permission?" "No." "Do you want it recovered?" "I want to prevent an illegal sale first. I am medically unable to drive right now, but I do not consent to anyone using or selling it." He nodded. "I'll include that in the report." He gave me a report number written on a small white card. After he left, I set the card beside Grandma June's recipe box. Michelle looked at it. "Your grandmother would be proud. She would tell me to make a copy." Michelle smiled. "Also that." By the following Monday, I had 3 things my parents did not know about: a police report, a lien holder alert, and a note on my hospital chart documenting that my father had attempted to bring legal paperwork to my room while I was recovering. But my parents were moving faster than I expected. At 9:10 that Monday morning, while I was sitting on my couch with a pillow pressed against my abdomen, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Kyle. Dad said, "Stop being weird about the car. Dennis already paid deposit." I stared at the screen. Then another message came. "You don't even need it, RN. Stop making everything about you." I took screenshots. I did not reply. At 10:35, my mother called. I let it go to voicemail. Her voice came through a minute later, sweet and wounded. "Rachel, honey, this has gotten out of hand. Your father is very upset. Kyle is embarrassed. Dennis is a good man, and we cannot just jerk people around because you are feeling emotional after surgery. Please call me back and be reasonable." I saved the voicemail. At 11:15, my father called. I let that go to voicemail too. His message was shorter. "Rachel, you need to stop. You are not thinking clearly. We are going to the DMV this week. If you make a scene, that is on you." I saved that one twice. Then I called the DMV. Getting through took 40 minutes, 2 menu loops, and 1 transfer to a title specialist named Marlene Evans at the Sycamore Avenue branch. I told her my name. I told her my vehicle information. I told her my title had been reported stolen and my parents might attempt to transfer. Marlene asked for my plate number, VIN, and report number. I read them slowly from the documents in front of me. "Do you have a lien?" she asked. "Yes." "Then they cannot legally transfer without lien release." "They may have paperwork." "Do they have your notarized signature?" "No." "Then they cannot legally transfer without you." Her voice was plain, not comforting. Better than comforting. Plain meant solid. "Can you flag it?" "I can add a customer service note. I cannot prevent someone from standing in line with papers, but the clerk will verify identity, lien status, and signature. If you are concerned, you should also contact law enforcement and your lender." "I have." "Good." I hesitated. "If they come in, will you call me?" "No, ma'am, we do not mediate family disputes. But if anyone presents questionable documents, we follow procedure. Procedure. Another word I had underestimated. People like my father knew how to control feelings. He knew how to make my mother cry, make Kyle needy, make me look unreasonable, make relatives say, "Can't you just let this go?" But procedure did not care who sounded hurt. Procedure wanted signatures. Procedure wanted identification. Procedure wanted dates, releases, original documents, matching names. By Tuesday, Kyle had started using the Corolla. Michelle drove past my parents' house on her lunch break because I was not supposed to be moving around. She called me from her car. "It's not there." I closed my eyes. "Okay. I'm sorry. No thank you." At 4:40 that afternoon, a photo appeared on Amber's social media story. Kyle was standing beside my Corolla at a gas station, holding a fountain drink. The caption said, "Finally wheels again." I took a screenshot. Then I called my insurance agent. His name was Paul Adkins, and he had handled my renters and auto policies for 3 years. I explained the situation. "Do you want to remove permissive use for any household or family members?" he asked. "Yes." "You do not live with them, so they are not listed drivers anyway. But I can add a note that Kyle Monroe, Robert Monroe, and Elaine Monroe are not authorized to operate the vehicle." "Please do. If the vehicle is being driven without permission, you need to update the police report." "I will." "And Rachel?" "Yes?" "Do not let anyone talk you into saying it was borrowed if it was not borrowed." I wrote that down on a yellow legal pad. Do not call theft borrowing. The next envelope arrived on a rainy Wednesday. Michelle had picked up my mail because the stairs still made me dizzy. There was an official-looking letter from Brookhaven Memorial's billing office, 2 grocery ads, and a handwritten envelope from my mother. I opened my mother's envelope last. Inside was a note on floral stationery. "Rachel, your father and I are heartbroken by your behavior. We have tried to teach you that family means sacrifice. Kyle is finally trying to rebuild his life, and you are standing in his way over an old car. We are moving forward with the sale because it is what makes sense. The money will be handled fairly. One day, when you are less emotional, you will understand that we were protecting the family from your selfishness. Mom." I set the letter on the table. The rain tapped against the kitchen window. Downstairs, someone laughed in the salon, then a blow-dryer started again. I took a photo of the letter. Then I put it in a clear plastic sleeve. It was strange how quickly pain became evidence when I stopped asking pain to explain itself. On Thursday morning, I called a lawyer. Not a dramatic lawyer. Not someone from a billboard with crossed arms and a slogan. I called a woman named Meredith Sloan, whose office was above a pharmacy downtown, and whose website said she handled consumer protection, small estate issues, and civil disputes. Meredith had sharp gray eyes, short brown hair, and a fountain pen she clicked only once at the start of our meeting. Michelle drove me there and waited in the car because I wanted to go in alone. The office smelled like lemon cleaner and old paper. Meredith listened while I told her everything. The hospital, the missing title, the car, the text messages, the voicemails, the insurance note, the police report, the DMV call. She asked careful questions. "Did you ever give your parents power of attorney?" "No." "Did you sign any blank forms?" "No." "Did they have access to your social security number?" "My parents probably know it. They had my childhood documents years ago." "Did they have your driver's license?" "No." "Did they have your spare apartment key?" "They did. I changed the lock yesterday." That was true. Michelle had called a locksmith. He came at 9 in the morning, changed the deadbolt, and handed me 3 new keys. I put one on Grandma June's keychain, one in my metal box, and one in a sealed envelope for Michelle. Meredith tapped the pen once against her notepad. "Here is what we do. First, we send a written demand for return of the vehicle. Second, we notify the DMV in writing that the title was stolen and any transfer is disputed. Third, we notify the buyer, if you know who he is, that your parents have no authority to sell the vehicle. Fourth, if they attempt to complete a transfer with forged documents, we involve law enforcement immediately." I swallowed. "Can they get away with it?" She looked at me for a moment. "People get away with things when the person they harmed is too exhausted to create a record. You are creating a record." I thought of Grandma June. Paper remembers. Meredith drafted 3 letters that day, one to my parents, one to Dennis Ward, one to the DMV title office. The letter to my parents was simple. They were to return the vehicle to me or to a neutral location within 48 hours. They were not authorized to sell, transfer, drive, encumber, damage, or conceal it. Any attempt to transfer ownership without my signature would be reported as fraud. When Meredith read that sentence aloud, something in my chest loosened. Fraud was not a family disagreement. Fraud was a word with doors. I paid Meredith $375 for the consultation and letters. I put the receipt in the folder. That evening, my father called 6 times. I did not answer. At 7:22, he left a voicemail. "You got a lawyer? For your own family? Do you have any idea how humiliating this is for your mother?" Kyle is beside himself. "Dennis wants his money back. You have turned a simple family matter into some legal circus. Call me." I saved it. At 7:40, Kyle texted, "You're insane." Screenshot. Then, "Hope the hospital kept you longer because something's wrong with your head." Screenshot. Then, "Car's basically sold anyway." Screenshot. At 8:10, my mother texted, "Please do not destroy this family over a vehicle." I typed a reply, then deleted it. Then, I typed another, "I am not destroying the family. I am refusing to let the family destroy my property." I did not send it. Instead, I opened my yellow legal pad and added every call, text, and voicemail to the timeline. February 6th. Hospital room. Father requested signature. February 9th. Discovered original title missing. February 9th. Police report filed. February 12th. Kyle says Dennis paid deposit. February 13th. Amber posts photo of Kyle with car. February 15th. Attorney letters sent. By the time the rain stopped, I had 2 folders. The blue car folder and the red evidence folder. I need to pause here for a second. If you have ever been the person everyone expected to stay quiet because speaking up would embarrass the family, then you know why that red folder mattered. It was not just about a car. It was about the years they spent treating my no like a delay instead of an answer. If this story is hitting close to home, leave a comment and tell me the moment you stopped explaining yourself. And if you have not already, subscribe to Ultimate Revenge. The quiet part is over. The public story my parents told was very different from the paperwork. My Aunt Carol called me on Friday morning. Aunt Carol was my father's older sister, 70 years old, sharp-tongued when she wanted to be, but usually loyal to whoever spoke first. "Rachel," she said, "what's this I hear about you calling the police on your parents?" I was sitting at my kitchen table eating toast because the antibiotics made everything taste like metal. I reported my stolen title. "Your father said he was helping you sell the car." "He was not helping me. He said you agreed and then changed your mind." "That is not true." She sighed. "You know your brother has had a hard time." "Aunt Carol, did Dad tell you he brought transfer paperwork to my hospital room after emergency surgery?" Silence. "No." "Did he tell you I never signed anything?" "No." "Did he tell you the original title disappeared from my locked box while they had my apartment key?" Another silence. Then she said, more quietly, "Rachel." Just my name again. "But different this time. I am not asking you to take sides," I said. "I am asking you to notice when someone leaves out the part that matters." She did not apologize. Monroes were not good at that. But she said, "I'll call you later." That afternoon, Dennis Ward called. His voice was nervous. "Ms. Monroe, this is Dennis Ward. I got a letter from your attorney." "Yes." "Your father told me you wanted to sell." "I did not." "He said you were sick and he had authority." "He did not." Dennis exhaled. "I gave Kyle $800 cash deposit." "I'm sorry he took your money. Your father said title transfer would be Thursday if you didn't sign sooner." I sat still. "What Thursday?" "This coming Thursday, Sycamore DMV." I looked at the calendar on the wall. The first Thursday after the letters. 6 days away. Did he say I would be there? He said you might be difficult, but the clerk would process it because it was a family sale. I almost smiled. Not because it was funny. Because arrogance has a sound when it runs ahead of the facts. Mr. Ward, I said, I do not consent to the sale. If you appear at the DMV, you should know I will be there too. He cleared his throat. I don't want trouble. Then ask Kyle for your $800 back. He already spent it. Of course he had. After the call, I emailed Meredith. She replied 20 minutes later, do not confront them privately. Appear at DMV if medically able. Bring ID, police report, lien information, attorney letter, insurance note, and any communications. I will notify DMV title office again in writing. If forged signature appears, contact Officer Ruiz. By then, my body was healing, but slowly. I walked like an older woman, one hand on the wall, counting steps. Showering exhausted me. Coughing felt like being torn in half, but something inside me had gone very still. My mother sent daily messages. Some were soft. We love you. Please come home for dinner when you feel better. Your father is not sleeping. Some were sharp. A daughter should not threaten her parents. Your grandmother would be ashamed of this. You are letting Michelle influence you. That last one made me laugh once, quietly. Grandma June would not have been ashamed. Grandma June would have sharpened a pencil and asked for copies. On Sunday afternoon, I opened her recipe box and found the card I had not looked at since the funeral. Call Rachel when you miss the truth. On the back, in smaller writing, she had added something I had forgotten. Never let them make you rude for being clear. I set the card beside my red folder. On Monday, I received a voicemail from Kyle. He sounded different, less bored, more desperate. Rachel, this is stupid. Dennis is threatening me now because of your lawyer letter. I needed that deposit. Amber's mad. Dad said you'd cave by now. Just sign the stupid title. You can get another car when you're better. Why do you always have to act like you're better than us? I listened to it twice. Not because it hurt, because he had said, Dad said you'd cave by now. I saved it. On Tuesday, Officer Ruiz called me. Ms. Monroe, we received your update. Your attorney's letter was attached to the report. Do you know where the vehicle is now? I believe my brother has it. Do you want to pursue unauthorized use? I want to avoid escalation before Thursday if possible, but I want the record clear. Understood. If they attempt transfer with a forged signature, call immediately. Will a DMV clerk call police? If they identify suspected fraud, they can, but you should call too. I wrote that down. On Wednesday evening, Michelle came over with soup, a stack of printed emails, and a look on her face. What? I asked. She placed her phone on the table. Amber had posted again. This time, it was a photo of my Corolla parked outside a dealership-style detailing shop. The caption read, "Getting her cleaned up for her new owner." I stared at the image. My car looked strange without the salt and winter grime, like someone had washed away its history to make their lie easier to sell. Michelle said, "Rachel, I'm okay." "You don't have to be." "I know." I zoomed in on the photo. The plate was visible. The dent on the passenger door was visible. Kyle's reflection was visible in the glass. Taking the photo. Screenshot, print, folder. That became the rhythm. Pain. Proof. Print. Folder. On Thursday morning, I woke at 6:30 without an alarm. The sky outside my apartment window was still gray. I moved slowly. Shower. Bandage check. Black pants with an elastic waistband because anything stiff hurt. A soft cream sweater. Flat shoes. Hair braided over one shoulder. Grandma June's book, keychain in my purse. Clip to the new apartment key, and the spare car key. Michelle arrived at 8, with coffee, and a paper bag containing a plain bagel. "You look like you're about to audit a priest," she said. "I might." She drove us to Meredith's office first. Meredith had prepared a packet. Police report copy, attorney letters, DMV notice, lien holder account note, insurance note, screenshots, voicemail transcript summaries, medical discharge documentation, and a signed statement from me. She handed me the folder. "Do not argue," she said. "I wasn't planning to." "Good. Your father will likely try to frame this as a family misunderstanding. Keep bringing it back to authorization." "Authorization," I repeated. Exactly. Did you authorize the sale? Did you sign the title? Did you permit them to possess the original? Did you permit Kyle to use the vehicle? No. That is your answer. Michelle drove me to the DMV. The Sycamore Avenue branch sat in a low brick building next to a tax preparation office and a closed sandwich shop. The parking lot was full of puddles. A woman in a red coat stood outside, smoking beside a trash can. The automatic doors opened with a tired sigh. Inside, the air was warm and stale. A line of chairs faced a wall of counters. A printer jammed somewhere behind the partitions. The digital board displayed A42, B16, C9. My parents were already there. Of course they were. My father stood at counter 4. My mother stood beside him. Kyle leaned against the wall. Dennis Ward stood a few feet away, holding an envelope. And there was my title. Not a copy. The original. My father had placed it on the counter, like a winning card. Marlene Evans, the title specialist I had spoken to on the phone, stood behind the counter with the title in front of her. Her silver glasses hung from the chain around her neck. She looked at me once as I came in, then back at my father. I took a number from the machine. It printed B17. The number board clicked. B17. I walked to counter 4. My father turned. "Rachel," he said, "you should be resting." My mother said, "You didn't have to come all the way down here. We had it handled." Kyle muttered, "Unbelievable." Dennis looked at the floor. Marlene looked at me. "Are you Rachel Monroe?" "Yes, ma'am." My father gave that little laugh. "That's my daughter. She's been very sick. We're just trying to help her get things in order." Marlene did not smile. "This vehicle is titled solely in Rachel Monroe's name," she said. "The transfer cannot be completed without her notarized signature or her appearing in person." My father said we explained that she authorized us. Marlene touched the title. She did not sign this. My mother shifted. I placed my driver's license on the counter. "I am Rachel Monroe. I did not authorize the sale or transfer of this vehicle." My father's voice lowered. "Don't make this difficult." Marlene looked at him over her glasses. "Sir, please step back unless I ask you a question." My father blinked. He was not used to women behind counters treating his tone as irrelevant. Kyle pushed off the wall. "Oh, come on, it's a family thing." Marlene looked at him. "Are you listed on the title?" "No, but—" "Then please wait." The room had begun to notice us. Not dramatically, people glanced up from phones. A man holding renewal paperwork paused with his pen in the air. The mother with the toddler bounced him on her hip while looking toward counter 4. My mother whispered, "Rachel, people are watching." I looked at the folder in my hand. "Yes." Marlene asked, "Do you have documentation of your dispute?" "I do." I opened Meredith's folder and slid the first page across the counter. My original title was reported stolen on February 9th. Here is the police report number. Here is the attorney notice sent to this office. Here is the lien holder note. Here is the insurance authorization note. Here is written notice that Robert Monroe, Elaine Monroe, and Kyle Monroe are not authorized to sell, transfer, or operate the vehicle. My father said, "This is absurd." Marlene picked up the police report copy. The printer behind her hummed. Someone coughed. The toddler stopped fussing for one blessed second, as if even he understood that something had shifted. Marlene read the report. Then she looked at the title. "Mr. Monroe, how did you obtain this original title?" My father's mouth tightened. "It was in Rachel's papers. We were helping her." I said quietly, "My parents had my apartment key while I was hospitalized. The title disappeared from my locked box." My mother pressed a hand to her chest. "Rachel," Marlene asked, "did Rachel give you permission to remove it?" My father said, "She was incapacitated." That was not my question. No one spoke for 7 seconds. I counted them. My father said, "We are her parents." Marlene's expression did not change. That is also not an answer. Kyle said, "This is stupid. She said before she would help me." I turned my head and looked at him. "When did I say you could sell my car?" His face flushed. "You always twist things." "When did I say you could sell my car?" He looked at my mother. She looked away. Dennis Ward cleared his throat. I was told she agreed. My father turned on him. Dennis, stay out of this. Marlene held up one hand. Sir. That one word landed harder than shouting would have. Marlene pulled another form closer. There is also a lien recorded on this vehicle. Do you have lien release documentation? My father's eyes flickered. The loan is basically paid. That is not a lien release. It's a small balance. That is not a lien release. My mother said softly, Robert. He ignored her. Look, this is a family matter. My daughter has been under medication. She is not thinking clearly. Marlene looked at me. Ms. Monroe, are you under any legal guardianship or power of attorney arrangement giving your father authority over your property? No. Have you executed any document permitting the sale? No. Have you accepted payment from Mr. Ward? No. Have you authorized your brother to possess or operate the vehicle? No. Each nose felt like setting a stone in a wall. My father's face reddened. Kyle said, You're really doing this over $4,000? I looked at him. You took an $800 deposit for a car you did not own. Dennis looked at Kyle. Kyle's mouth opened, then closed. Marlene asked Dennis, Did you pay a deposit? Dennis held up the envelope slightly. Yes, cash. To Kyle, Do you have a receipt? Dennis hesitated. Kyle said, Man, don't. Dennis pulled a folded receipt from the envelope. It was written on lined paper, in Kyle's handwriting. Received $800 deposit for Rachel Monroe Toyota Corolla. Balance due at title transfer. Marlene read it. Then she looked at Kyle. You accepted money for a vehicle titled to Rachel Monroe? Kyle's confidence cracked then. Not completely. Just enough for everyone to see the line. I was handling it for her. No, you were not, I said. My father snapped. Rachel, enough. I turned to him. Dad, when exactly did I give you permission to take the original title from my apartment? His mouth flattened. You are embarrassing yourself. No, I said. I am asking a question. Marlene picked up the phone at her station. My mother's face went pale. Who are you calling? Marlene said, A supervisor. My father looked toward the door. That was the first time I saw him understand the room no longer belonged to him. The supervisor arrived, 2 minutes later. His name was Mr. Chen, a slim man with a burgundy tie and a calm face. Marlene explained the situation in a low voice, then handed him the documents. He read the police report, the attorney letter, the lien holder note, the receipt from Dennis, the title. Then he looked at my father. Mr. Monroe, we cannot process this transfer. My father said, Fine, we'll come back when Rachel is in a better state. Mr. Chen did not blink. No, this record will be flagged. Any future transfer attempt will require direct verification with Ms. Monroe and lien holder release. Given the reported stolen title and disputed possession, we will retain a copy of the presented documents for our records. You're not keeping my title, my father said. Mr. Chen turned to me. Ms. Monroe, this title is in your name. Do you wish to surrender this physical title and apply for a duplicate due to compromised custody? Yes. My father's head snapped toward me. You cannot do that. Marlene slid a form toward me. I picked up the pen. My hand trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the effort of standing upright that long. Michelle stepped closer behind me, not touching me, just there. My mother whispered, Rachel, please. I looked at her. You had my keys in your purse while I was in the hospital. Her eyes filled. We were trying to help. You wrote that you were moving forward with the sale. She looked down. You were emotional. I signed the duplicate title request. Marlene checked my ID, notarized the required portion, and stamped the form. The sound of the stamp hitting paper was small and final. Mr. Chen said, We also need to address the vehicle possession. Ms. Monroe, do you have the vehicle currently? No, my brother has been using it. Kyle said, I brought it here. Everyone turned. Through the front windows, in the second row of the parking lot, sat my silver Corolla. Cleaned. Polished. ready for a new owner. Grandma June's leather keychain was not in the ignition because it was in my purse. But Kyle had the spare my parents took from my apartment. Officer Ruiz arrived 12 minutes later. Marlene had not made a spectacle of it. She simply followed procedure after the supervisor reviewed the disputed title and police report. Officer Ruiz walked in with another officer, a woman named Patel, and spoke first to Mr. Chen, then to me. My father stood very still. Kyle started talking too fast. "It's not stolen. It's my sister's car. We're family. She knew. She's just mad because I needed help." Officer Ruiz asked, "Do you have written permission to use or sell the vehicle?" Kyle looked at my father. Officer Ruiz repeated, "Do you have written permission?" My father said, "This has been blown out of proportion." Officer Patel said, "Sir, please let him answer." Kyle's lips pressed together. "No." Dennis Ward stepped forward slowly. "I gave him $800 deposit." Officer Ruiz asked, "For the vehicle?" Dennis nodded. Officer Ruiz looked at Kyle. "You accepted money for a vehicle you did not own and did not have permission to sell?" Kyle's face had gone blotchy. "I was going to get permission." I said, "No, you weren't." My father rounded on me. "Do you feel proud of this, having police question your brother in public?" I looked at him for a long moment. Behind him, my mother gripped her purse with both hands. Dennis stared at his receipt. Marlene stood behind the counter with my paperwork. Mr. Chen watched with the neutral expression of a man who had seen many people discover that confidence is not documentation. "No," I said, "I feel tired." That was all. No speech, no accusation, no final blow delivered with a smile, just the truth. Officer Ruiz asked me if I wanted the vehicle returned to my possession. Yes. "Are you able to drive?" "Not today. My friend can drive it." Michelle lifted her hand slightly. "I can." Officer Patel asked Kyle for the keys. He looked at my father again. My father said nothing. Kyle took the spare key from his pocket and slapped it onto the counter. The sound was ugly and childish. Marlene glanced at it, then at me. I picked it up with 2 fingers. It felt foreign. A copy made for people who thought access was ownership. Officer Ruiz told Kyle and my father that the report would be updated. Dennis was advised that his deposit dispute was with Kyle, not me. The DMV retained copies of the attempted transfer paperwork and the disputed receipt. The title was marked compromised. My duplicate title request was accepted. No one was handcuffed that day. That is not always how consequences arrive. Sometimes consequences are quieter. A government note in a file, a police report updated, a buyer realizing he was lied to, a father discovering that his voice does not outrank a signature, a brother watching the car he thought he had already sold leave the parking lot with someone else behind the wheel. Michelle drove the Corolla back to my apartment. I rode with her in the passenger seat. The car smelled faintly of cheap air freshener and gas station coffee. Kyle had adjusted the mirrors, moved the seat back, and left a fast food receipt in the cup holder. I picked it up. 2 burgers, large fries, fountain drink. Paid at 1:12 in the afternoon, the day before. I folded it once and put it in the folder. Michelle glanced at me. "Really?" "Habit." She laughed softly. At my apartment, she parked the Corolla in the small lot behind the building, close to the back door. I sat in the passenger seat for a minute after she turned off the engine. The dashboard clock glowed 3:18. Grandma June's leather book keychain rested in my palm. My car was just a car. Old. Dented. High mileage. But when something is yours, and someone takes it while you are too weak to stand, getting it back feels like more than possession. It feels like re-entering your own life through a door they swore they had locked. The aftermath did not come all at once. It came in pieces. Dennis filed a small claims case against Kyle for the $800 deposit. I know because Aunt Carol told me, and because Kyle left me a voicemail blaming me for it. "Hope you're happy," he said. "Amber kicked me out for 2 nights because Dennis showed up at her work. All because you couldn't just be normal." I saved the voicemail, but I did not need it anymore. My father sent one email through my mother's account because I had blocked his number. "Rachel, You have made your point, the car is back. Your brother is suffering serious consequences because you escalated a family misunderstanding into a legal matter. We expect you to contact the DMV and police to clarify that no crime occurred, Dad. I replied once. No, that was the entire email. My mother came to my apartment 11 days after the DMV incident. I watched her through the peephole for several seconds before opening the door. She wore a blue coat and held a casserole dish wrapped in foil. "Hi, honey," she said. I did not move aside. "Hi." "I brought chicken and rice." That was kind. She looked past me into the apartment, as if the rooms might invite her in even if I did not. "Can we talk?" I opened the door wider but stayed standing. She stepped inside and set the casserole on my kitchen counter. The apartment smelled like laundry soap and the peppermint tea I had been drinking because coffee still turned my stomach. My mother looked smaller there than she did in her own house. She folded her hands. "Your father is very hurt, I'm sure. And Kyle feels betrayed." I looked at her. "Mom." Her eyes filled immediately. "He made a mistake." "No, he accepted money for my car while I was recovering from surgery." "He panicked." "No, he planned." She wiped under one eye with her finger. "You have become very hard." I thought about that. The old me would have softened. She would have rushed to prove she was still good, still loving, still willing to understand. She would have eaten the chicken and rice, then sent a text later, thanking her mother too warmly. She would have helped everyone step around the truth so no one had to trip over it. But I was tired of being the carpet laid over broken glass. "I have become clear," I said. My mother looked at the recipe box on my shelf. "Your grandmother would not want us divided. She would not want you taking my title from a locked box either." Her mouth trembled. I did not take it. I watched her face. "Did Dad?" She looked away. There it was. Not a confession, not exactly. But truth often enters a room sideways. I said, "You knew." She whispered, "He said it was best." I nodded slowly. "And what did I say?" She frowned. "What?" "What did I say when Dad asked me in the hospital?" She looked toward the window. "You said no." The word sat between us. No. The smallest complete sentence. The one they had treated like a suggestion. I walked to the counter, picked up the casserole dish, and handed it back to her. "I'm not hungry." She looked wounded again, but this time I did not mistake that wound for innocence. "Rachel, please. You can leave now." She held the casserole against her chest. "You're shutting out your family." "No," I said. "I'm locking the door." She left without another word. I changed the locks again the next week, not because she had a key, but because I wanted the ritual. The locksmith was confused when I said the deadbolt was nearly new. "Problem with it?" "No," I said. "I just want a different key." He shrugged and did the work. When he handed me the new key, I put it on Grandma June's leather book keychain. The brass snap finally gave out that afternoon. It popped open and fell onto the kitchen table. For a moment I just looked at it. Then I took the keychain to a small leather repair shop near the old train depot. The owner, a man with white hair and magnifying glasses, replaced the snap for $12. He said, "Good leather, worth fixing." I ran my thumb over the darkened edge. "Yes," I said, "it is." The Corolla needed work after Kyle had driven it. The alignment was off. There was a new scratch near the bumper. The tank was almost empty. I took it to Alan's Auto, where the mechanic shook his head and said, "Someone hit a curb hard." I paid $286 for the repair. Meredith helped me send a demand letter for that too. Kyle never paid it. But that was not the point. The point was that the demand existed. The record existed. By March I was driving again. Slowly at first. Short trips. Grocery store. Pharmacy. Physical therapy. Then work. Then clients. The first time I drove myself to brighter days after surgery. I arrived 20 minutes early and sat in the parking lot with both hands on the steering wheel. My body still hurt. My family was still angry. My father still told relatives I had, quote, weaponized paperwork. Kyle still claimed I ruined his chance to get ahead. My mother still sent holiday cards with my name written carefully on the envelope, as if neat handwriting could repair what she would not name. But I had my car. I had my apartment. I had my keys. I had the folder. And more than that, I had heard myself say no in a public building and watched the world continue turning. There is a particular peace that comes when you stop trying to be understood by people who benefit from misunderstanding you. It is not dramatic. It does not feel like victory music. It feels like a quiet kitchen on a Sunday morning. It feels like coffee cooling beside a recipe box. It feels like a car key hanging by the door exactly where you left it. It feels like reading a letter and realizing you do not have to answer. My parents did not become different people. That is important to say. A lot of stories want the ending where everyone sees the truth and changes. My father never called to apologize. My brother never admitted he stole anything. My mother never said, "I should have protected you." She only said, months later, "I wish things had not gotten so legal." I told her, "I wish things had not gotten so dishonest." She did not reply. Aunt Carol did call me before Easter. "I heard more," she said. "From who?" "Dennis Ward's sister goes to my church." I closed my eyes. Brookhaven was not a big town. Aunt Carol sighed. "Your father left out quite a bit." "Yes. I'm sorry I called you like I did." I looked at Grandma June's recipe box on the table. "Thank you." She cleared her throat. "Your grandmother would have said paper remembers." I smiled then. She did. That Easter, I did not go to my parents' house. I made Grandma June's lemon bars from the recipe box and brought them to Michelle's apartment. We ate them on her couch while watching an old movie, and she complained they were too good because now she could never eat store-bought ones again. On the way home, I drove slowly through Brookhaven with the windows cracked. The air smelled like rain and cut grass. I passed the DMV on Sycamore Avenue. The building was dark. The parking lot was empty except for one security light reflecting in a puddle. I pulled into the lot and parked for a minute. Not because I needed to, because I could. I sat there with the engine idling and Grandma June's keychain resting against my knee. I thought about my father at counter 4, smiling because he believed the sale was already done. I thought about my mother whispering that people were watching. I thought about Kyle saying it was just a car. Maybe to him it was. To me, it was proof that the life I had built with quiet work still belonged to me, even if my family thought my silence meant they could sign my name over to someone else. People think revenge is loud. It is not. Sometimes revenge is a clerk asking for a signature. Sometimes it is a supervisor reading a police report. Sometimes it is a title that cannot move because the woman it belongs to finally stands at the counter and says no. Sometimes revenge is not ruining anyone. Sometimes it is refusing to let them keep what they took. I drove home before the light changed. The next morning, I clipped a copy of the duplicate title receipt into my blue folder. Then I wrote one sentence on the inside cover, underneath my name. No one gets to call theft help. I still drive that Corolla. It rattles sometimes when the weather is cold. The passenger window sticks if you roll it down too far. The coffee stain is still under the driver's seat, though it has faded. The dent on the passenger door is still there because I decided not to fix it. Not everything scarred needs to be hidden. Some marks remind you that something hit you and you kept moving. And when I turn the key, the little leather book swings gently from the ring, fixed with its new brass snap, still worn smooth where my thumb rests, for the places you will go. Grandma June was right. I had places to go, and this time, no one else was driving. So tell me, if your family called it help when they took something you needed to survive, would you keep explaining yourself? Or would you stand at the counter and let the signature tell the truth? Thank you for staying with me through this story. Some betrayals do not arrive with shouting or broken dishes. Sometimes they arrive in soft voices, family language, and paperwork someone hoped you would be too tired to read. If you have ever had to defend something that should have been respected from the beginning, I hope this reminded you that clarity is not cruelty. Subscribe to Ultimate Revenge for more stories about quiet women, family betrayal, silent proof, and the kind of comebacks that do not need to raise their voice. There are more folders waiting, more truths being carried, and more women learning that their no was always enough.